Hey, what's up, guys? It's John Nelson, and you're listening to the Starting Block Podcast. Guys, this is a show for complete athletic development. We welcome you to the show if you're new. Thank you for joining. As always, I'm here with my co-host, Chris Scarborough. Good afternoon, man. How are you?
Hey, good afternoon, guys.
All right, guys, I don't feel like going through the whole intro today because we've already been having such a great conversation with our guests, so we're just going to get right to it, man. If you don't know about how we operate, go to another episode and learn. We're going to get right into it, man. We got a great guest today. We're having a great time already, so I want to go ahead and get him on. Guys, we are super blessed to have the head strength and conditioning coach for the German women's national team and also a club team in Turkey. We are
volleyball.
Yeah, volleyball,
John.
Mr. Rhett Larson. I'm just excited you're on, man. What's up?
Hey, not
Nice.
much. I'm so fucking happy to be here. And thanks for letting me know I can cuss. You guys told me that early on, and I'm going to take all advantage of that. You don't get that too often, but
go for it.
Fuck yeah, let's go.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. So yeah, we were just talking about all kinds of stuff. But guys, if you don't know Rhett, I mean, he's an unbelievably accomplished strength conditioning coach in the volleyball scene as well. You might know him from his No Zombies approach, which is just all over the place and freaking awesome. We're gonna dig into that. But we were also just talking about how he went to Carolina and just kind of the experiences he had in grad school at UNC. And like I said, man, I'm just super jealous of you because that's where I wanted to go and I just missed. But yeah, great story, man. And what an unbelievable run you've had so far, winning gold with the Chinese team and where you are now. And man, I'm just super stoked to kind of get this thing going and learn from you. So,
I referenced my time with UNC just today. It's not something that comes up that often, but when I was in grad school there, I interned with the football program. So I was with all of those guys. We were talking today about what we were doing Bulgarian split squats, and that's one of our marquee lifts. And the girls, as they got up to their maxes, I was letting the girls pick their music, and I talked about being back at UNC in that Tar Heel weight room when they would have max day. And I can remember, and this will tell you exactly when I was there, that we had to play 50 Cent Into Club on repeat for 6 straight hours while the teams kept coming in to max, because that was the only song that would be able to be played for anyone to their maxes. And so
the song is still like legit to this day. Like I know we're all old enough, to say like this song's 20 years old. It's great.
1.25 kilos over what you're normally able to do if that is on, no doubt.
It never gets old, man. He's talking about Max Day. Did you see what UCLA did last week for their Max Day? That kind of made the rounds. It was wild. It was their football team. Like they put up, like it kind of went viral in our field, and like they put out a smoke machine, and like they had all.
I did see it. I did see that. Incredible. Wild. I mean. So that speaks to my heart. Like these little things that you can do to create a culture and an environment that almost tricks athletes into caring more. Like that's a huge part of my philosophy is how can I make athletes who wouldn't, football is a different beast. Like football players normally actually love lifting weights. Yeah. You get into other sports and it is not that way. There's a gender thing sometimes, and there's a sport thing. There are sports, like when I was with China, I wasn't just with volleyball. I was with diving and gymnastics. If you put on a half a kilo of muscle mass, you can get in trouble for making athletes heavier. And so, or give them any bulk whatsoever. Yeah. So it's kind of unique to be able to be in a place that is, it kind of sees that is different.
I think that's a great point. Like so I kind of want to lead with that a little bit. I mean, you said you interned with the football team and, but like how did you find your way into kind of the Olympic, the Olympic sports, basically the volleyball, swimming, diving? How'd you go down that path?
Yeah, I'd been with a sports performance training company in California for about 10 years called Velocity Sports Performance, where we also specialized in all of the normal American sports, of course. We specialized in younger athletes as well. And then Exos, or then known as Athletes Performance, came to me and asked me if I wouldn't mind taking a year off to work with the Chinese Olympic teams to get them ready for the London Olympics. So they asked me in 2011 if I'd go there. And I said, yeah, you know what? I could use a little bit of a break from what I've been doing. Let's go have an adventure. I think I'd recently broken up with a long-term girlfriend. It was time to get out of the continent.
Time to get out of the continent.
Yeah, let's.
Wow, that must
that
have
wasn't
not
bad.
ended
That
well.
was bad.
Yeah, let's move halfway across the globe. That'll teach her. That'll teach her. And so I went over there, and you know, it was such a struggle. I mean, it was so difficult culturally for all the reasons you can imagine. Like, you know, as somebody that loves to talk and loves to laugh, when language is no longer something that you can rely on, that just that becomes an enormous constraint to coaching. But as we know as coaches, like, these constraints can make you better. And I think I got better at coaching because of having to work around these things. Never going from having pristine weight rooms that you control and have all the equipment you want to a variety of incredible to terrible weight rooms, and getting to be more creative and also having to come up with things on the fly. And so and also getting to work with the Chinese gold medal factories. And that's what Athletes Performance / Exos was hired to do, was to kind of make those gold medal factories, give them a slight percentage of performance increase, but also make them more robust. The typical Chinese athlete doesn't last more than 1 to 2 Olympics. And they thought rightly that if they could keep athletes for as long as we keep athletes in the West, if we can have these Michael Phelpses that go to 4 Olympics, then they're gonna get more gold medals, which is the whole point. And so I got to, all of a sudden I'm working with table tennis, gymnastics, judo, rowing, and my brain's opening up, and I'm struggling, but it becomes kind of addicting, honestly, to have your brain be so just kind of locked in all the time. It really, really was an incredible experience that, even though it was a huge struggle, and I'll tell you, after that first year, almost none of my teammates on the Exos team wanted to come back. In fact, none of them except one. And I was the only one that was like, he and I were the only ones that were like, okay, I'll run this back for another year, because of course the Chinese wanted us to come back, and all those guys, the attrition was big. But I said, let's do this. And I did. And it got easier and easier from a culture standpoint. And I got so much experience with crazy athletes that are in different disciplines that bring a whole, like, you think you're good at jump rope. Like, the average CrossFitter thinks they're good at jump rope. If I walked you into the Shanghai women's fencing team, forget about it. Triple unders, forget about it. One-footed triple unders, no problem. Like, running triple unders backward, like crazy athleticism. And I just got addicted to trying to see what kind of impact I could have on these people. So yeah, that's a long-winded way of saying that's what started me kind of loving being an expat, going after seeing all the different ways of doing things. You know, you're in the United States, you go to the same like Perform Better conferences, NSCA conferences, you hear a lot of the echo chamber. You go and coach in China for a little bit, you're not only exposed to the Chinese way of doing things, but also there's tons of different coaches from around the globe. You get exposed to like the way Australian physios treat knee problems, and the way British strength and conditioning people teach speed, and it can really, really expand your horizon. So after China, I went to the Netherlands for a bit, went back to China for a bit, went to Germany. Now I'm in Istanbul. Yeah, so that's what happened.
Wow. Quite the world traveler. That's awesome.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, let me say this. All right, because I know you have it. Let me say one more thing. I'm sorry I'm ranting.
No,
but
this is your show. Go for it, man.
Let me put in another little plug for this lifestyle. As a young coach, and I wasn't young when I did it, but the ability to take a skill set of an American coach, which if you're in the United States, you're one of hundreds and hundreds of coaches coaching in NCAA or wherever you are. Your particular cultural skill set is different and coveted and wanted and desired in Europe and in Asia and in India. Like, and in the Middle East. And you can stand to make a lot more money, yes, and you could be making money, also getting exposure to much better athletes than you're being exposed to right now, and maybe living for free. So I really can't, I cannot advise more that more more young coaches should be looking to work abroad for a unique experience that can help pad your investment accounts that will pay dividends for a long time.
Why do you feel like there is such a demand, or I guess an interest in American coaches and kind of our style of training around here?
Because we kick ass at the Olympics.
There you go.
I mean, like honestly, because we do very well, and we have a mentality. I mean, we're so lucky that Hollywood also promotes this kind of this spirit that we uniquely bring. That's not the case. I work in Germany right now. It's actually not very cool to be super nationalistic in Germany. I've never talked about this before, and I hope I don't get in trouble, but the girls on my team would say because of their history, World War II, whatever, having a big German flag and, having a flag of the Germany, like that's not as socially cool as it might be in the US to be that way and to be super rah-rah Germany. And so that's just one example. But, we kind of take it for granted that, for many people in the US that being on an Olympic team, if you went to the Olympics, you are the coolest person at a dinner party, right? You have an Olympic tattoo. Every American Olympian would get an Olympic tattoo if they went, right? And that's not the case everywhere. It's a different mindset. And the US has a reputation for, I think a spirit and that's unique.
Well, what would you say, just some of the things when you first went overseas, what were some of the things that you'd say you learned from them? And what were some of those things that they in turn learned from you? I mean, what were some of the benefits either way?
I love this question, Chris. And the knee-jerk reaction to almost anyone that would go over to China, for instance, when young coaches would go over there, they would say, "Oh my gosh, you guys are idiots. These are exercises. No one does lat pull downs behind their neck anymore with a ton of weight. No one does." And you will see some of the worst exercise selection ever when you go over to China and you're like, oh, they're going to erect a monument to me when I leave because I'm about to fix everything that is wrong with you guys. And you forget that China is like 2 medals away from having more golds than we have. Like they are very close to us and they're very, very good at what they do. So you're dumb if you don't take a step back and try to find out what they do better. And to answer your question, probably the biggest thing was work capacity and volume. That in the US, at least, especially when I was over there, we really were concerned about recovery. It was really popular to talk about how recovery is the most underestimated part of training. And in China, they couldn't have been happier that in the West, they're making the athletes spend a lot of time not training. And in China, they are doubling the amount of time spent diving. The Chinese diving team is not secretive at all about what they do. They're like, oh, we will let any country come over and observe our training because they simply can't do it. Our volumes are off the charts. They will do, in the West, they will do 20 to 40 dives a day. We warm up with 40 and we stop at 120. Like your body can't handle that. We've been doing this for years and years. We are way more robust than any other team out there. And if you are competing in a very technical sport, like the ones China kills us in, gymnastics, diving, archery, shooting, all of these these things that require 10,000 hours, they're going to smoke you because they are able to train longer and harder than the US, while the US or whatever Western nations are worried about your CRV, your heart rate, and your how well you're recovering, and we're doing readiness and all this, and they're laughing. They're employing people like us to try to make them more robust because they say, listen, we're going to outtrain every other team.
Well, John, remember when Rolf was on the show? I mean, he came. He was the Chinese, one of the Chinese coaches for track and field, and ironically, one of the things he said was they had to hold back on the volume. They had to find ways to fill these training hours because they were expected to have the athletes. John, what did he say? 25 hours?
I don't
Was it
remember.
25 hours of training per week or something like that? And so they had to fill it in with a lot of recovery stuff, pool work, swimming pool work, different things to keep them from overtraining or to keep them from at least what they perceived to be overtraining anyway. And so it's interesting that now you're the second person who's coming, saying the exact same thing basically. So
this was part of my onboarding speech for every, because I ended up being in China for 7 years. And so I would bring on coaches, first with Exos, but I was constantly the guy that onboarded everyone. And I would say, no matter what, if you have an athlete that is horribly overtrained, never recommend that they take a rest day. Say, hey, I'm going to bring them on for some rehabilitation stuff. And then you can let them sit down and put their legs up. And if nobody's looking, let them rest. But otherwise, you need to be putting them in a pool, doing something that looks like work, but is not. I am a big advocate of kind of that least effective dose, right? So even now, in the weight room, I promise all my athletes, I'm getting you out of there in 1 hour. I'm never going to keep you for a 90-minute session. I'm a 1 hour guy, but I'm going to cook you. Like we're going to be working. There's a density of work that I demand. There's no sitting around. Like I've designed it so that you can go and work without having to actually take a rest. And so, I would advise that, like when I went to the Chinese volleyball team, I would never have proposed that. What I did is on day one, I brought out of my special bag of tricks 4 exercises I know that will make them so sore that almost no one can practice the next day. We are going to do speed skater lunges. We're going to do like huge eccentric ab exercises, like stuff that I've seen in CrossFit, but I'll like almost never do. Just stuff that I know is going to make them miserable the next day. Because then I earn the equity, like that sweat equity, that now the coaches are going to be like, this guy gets it. This guy gets it. And I'm going to say, yeah, you know what? But I don't want to take away from practice. So I would like to actually shorten that session a little bit. I'm going to take a little bit off the top so that we can get out of there in 75 minutes, 70, 65. But it was part of my bag of tricks, and I advise so many people to do that. Like on the first day,
right.
You throw in exercises that you would never prescribe for anybody else because the coaches will love you afterwards.
It's actually not bad advice, but
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Stuff that would get me fired in the United States. Like, there's so many things that would get
no
me
doubt. You'd be fired on the spot, probably. Yeah.
You take advantage of their low training age, and low kind of knowledge base of the coaches there, and you just and you work it to your advantage. And at that point, you start earning enough street cred that you can make the sessions whatever you want them to be.
Awesome. Well, let's get into what we brought you on for. And Rhett, I have to be honest with you. I wanted you on the show very, very. I mean, this is very selfish because I train a volleyball team. When I saw it recommended that I follow No Zombies, I was like, is this some like some weird cultish film thing? I didn't know what it was. But anyway, so I checked it out and I was like, oh man, okay. Unfortunately, the Instagram algorithm had me all right. Okay. I was like, okay, I got to check this out. And so it was very selfish on my part. I wanted to bring you on. Let's get on to No Zombies. And what is it about? How did it come about? Because I'm very interested because I'm interested in implementing this myself.
Yeah, like what inspired that philosophy? And by the way, No Zombies is great, but Zombieland, the movie, since we talk about Hollywood, is also a fantastic movie.
One of the most underrated Jesse Eisenberg performance. Like,
yes, I love that
I
movie.
reference, and Woody Harrelson, you're right. This is a chef's kiss of a movie. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a wife who's Chinese and has watched very few English movies, but she will sometimes, like when we get in the car, she will say seatbelts and rule number 3, cardio. Like she's still, yeah. If you know, you know.
Yep.
It's similar to the story I just told that, and midway through my time in China, I went from being an Exos employee to getting hired on my own by the Chinese women's volleyball team. And so when I was with Exos, they have a very well-designed structure to warm-ups. I shouldn't say structure. Structure is probably the right word. That you go from soft tissue to activation, to thermogenics, to activating muscles with mini bands, to stretching, to neural response. And within all of those things, there are myriad different options to do. But still, if you're with the same team for year upon year, that gets to be a little bit predictable. And it gets to be a little bit, and I just started wondering how well I was moving the needle. Like, I just thought, what this is doing is getting my athletes warm, right? And that's great, but that's a very low bar. And I thought, is there a chance that I could be doing more? Because there's teams that I get, and maybe I only have 2 strength sessions a week with them. And I think, oh man, well, this team is so slow. What if I had a speed session? That would be so great. And I asked the team, can I get a speed session? And they give me 1 a week or something. And then I thought, well, why am I not just turning the warm-up into a mini speed session? They give me 20 minutes for a warm-up. Why am I just elongating the foam rolling part of my warm-up? Why don't I just work towards a speed session? You guys had Tony Holler on. Why am I not doing his atomic, speed warm-up? Like, why am I not? What would my team not be better served? My, let's say, Chinese volleyball team that is one of the most dominant teams in China, but is a slow team. We're one of the tallest Asian teams, but we were a super slow team. And that was one of our mandates upon getting the job with them was, could you make us any faster? And I started thinking, why am I not turning every single warm-up into a mini speed session? Why don't the last 5 minutes, if they're not a linear sprint, if I'm not racing them, if it's a fun relay race, if it's an agility race, but I'm timing them and posting the results, like giving it stakes, like wouldn't that be better than just the same skips, crawls, and low-level plyometrics that I've been doing for a decade? And that is really where the kernel came in. And seeing that, okay, well, now we're getting more out of warm-up. Now, early in the season, shit, I would love to be able to get some more shoulder time. There's a bunch of stuff in my weight training sessions that I think are important, but not important enough to take the place of something else, a lot of accessory work. Maybe I look on the internet and I see a lot of people are benefiting from knees over toes stuff. Well, I'm not about to go all in on that in my weight room time, but I can dabble with that in a warm-up. I get 15 to 20 minutes every single day of the week. Like, why am I not turning that into preventative knee stuff? Because that's where it started. No Zombies isn't, like, now the most popular stuff that I post are all the games. And we'll talk about that. Like the games and the fun and that level of that kind of stimulus. But it's not like that all the time. Maybe not even most of the time. And especially early in the season, no Zombies just means that they can't predict what's happening, that it's always novel, that it's something that they can't zone out for, that they can't sleepwalk through. And that can be, hey, we're going to do handstands against the wall we're going to do jump rope, and I'm going to try to teach you crazy jump rope skills you've never done before. And then we're going to go do handstands against the wall to make your shoulders bulletproof. And then we're going to do abs because I don't like doing that many abs during my workouts. So that counts because at least it's something novel and interesting. And when they come in the next day, maybe I'm going to do some of that knee bulletproofing stuff. Maybe we're going to do sissy squats or resisted back pedals. Well, that's a grind, right? That's not that fun. Well, why don't I supplement that with some PE game that I stole from a Korean PE teacher that has the athletes smiling, but also Does it tick the box of getting them really, really low to the ground? Does part of that game involve them having to touch the ground? Because that's pretty volleyball specific. That's making a volleyball specific shape. Does this involve them having to react to something? Does it involve them having to cooperate with a partner? Like, all of these are beneficial. And I just started seeing, well, if I do that, that's not just a game. Like, that's a game that's also ticking a couple boxes. Like, I'm seeing girls at the end of my warm-up that are hugging each other because they bonded as teammates, or that they just feel like they'd succeeded and that there was a competition. Like, I don't think it's wrong that there's a ton of competition in my warm-ups. Like, we get used to competing all the time, and we compete in stuff that is not always volleyball specific. So, the girls that are dominating on my volleyball court, all of a sudden they're not just the superstars when I bring out a crazy balloon weird competition warm-up or teaching the girls to juggle or something like that. And it gives other people a time to shine. And at some point I was in a workshop and I started talking about how I just didn't want warm-up zombies. And it resonated with me at the time. And I think I made a post about it or something, and it seemed to resonate. And then that just kind of took off as this last filter that I put on my warm-up designs when I'm looking at a whole week of warm-ups. And I'm thinking, okay, can I design a warm-up that my head coach will be stoked about because it's addressing something that I saw him cussing out a girl about last night at practice, that she's not low enough on defense? Oh, all right. Wait till they see what I do tomorrow, right, in warm-up, where everybody has to get their butt and like 3 inches off the ground and we're throwing medicine balls back and forth or whatever it is. And I supplement that with something else. So I'm making him happy with that. And then maybe I'm making my physical therapist happy because I have noticed that she does this external rotator cuff exercise, and I incorporate that into warm up. And No Zombies kind of became a place where I can make all the different people on my team happy. Like, I can make the coaches, the physios, I can start working on strength stuff. And it delights my athletes because it's not the same shit all the time, that they never know what's coming. And very often, if I'm going to make them do a grind that I know is going to help us survive the season, I'm going to supplement it with something really silly and crazy. I'm going to take a video of it. I'm going to put it on Instagram, so they better be good at it. And I'm going to make them look fun and cool. And so, it was such a low bar, and I really wanted to far exceed the expectations of what we could do in that time that for many coaches is kind of a throwaway.
Well, I noticed like on one of the sides, like you had I'll put your gamified warm up on one side of the net, but on the other side they're doing more traditional lunging or whatever. Yeah. So it's like, okay, now it's almost like you got to earn your time to come over here. To come over to the game.
And that's right, Chris. If I design, sometimes I'll come up with a great game or I'll find a great game, but I'm like, oh, but it's just not thermogenic enough, or it doesn't look enough like volleyball. Well, in order to make it okay, all I have to do is make them pay their dues beforehand. So I just have to, put like we have these security barriers, like you'd see it, like like a rope that keeps people back. I just have to put that up, and they have to duck under it 5 times before they're allowed to play. Or I set a zone up, they have to do body weight squats or lunge across. You have to lunge back, or you have to crawl between this crone and this crone. So I can throw this traditional stuff in to make sure that we're getting warm, to make sure that we're getting it down into, volleyball specific positions that allow me to feel okay for us to play the game. Because none of this works if they don't end up sweaty. None of this works. Like, I lose my job if somebody gets hurt because they go into practice cold, or the physios start saying, Rhett, you're tons of chuckles. That's great and all, but we're getting tons of shoulder injuries. We're getting a lot more shoulder problems are cropping up because the girls are just playing duck, duck, goose every day. And they're going into practice cold. So it's more than maybe the casual observer would think when they're watching my feed, because they see a lot of that's the stuff that, I want people to buy into the system. But the guts of it are, I have to take a lens to it to make sure that they are getting warm and they are making the shapes. And I haven't left a joint out because if we tear a couple of Achilles, then all of a sudden I deserve to lose my job if I haven't warmed them up adequately and we're just playing games.
So you've been through a number of different cultures, Chinese, German. What has the experience with the no zombies approach been like with some of these other cultures? I mean, have you had pushback from that? Did the athletes accept it quicker over here than they did in this country? And just kind of what were those cultural differences, if there have been any?
Yeah. Oh, I developed it in China, like I said, and it was a slow go. But also in China, I had way more time. Like I had 30 minutes to warm these athletes up. And at some point, I'm bored with my own training. So, I mean, I got to kind of do both. Like we got to do so much thermogenic, so we got to do the foam rolling and the stretching, stuff that now I've really, really de-emphasized in my current model. So I really had a great place to be able to kind of kick the tires on this idea because I got to do everything with China because we had so much time. They train twice as much as everybody else does. But that said, I think everyone who knows about the Chinese culture would think they are going to have the most pushback. Not true. They loved this because it really, the coaching staff saw that it really helped offset the mundane kind of rote training that made the Chinese team so good. They are great because they practice, kind of boring practice that if you've read the talent code, that a lot of greatness comes from your ability to withstand boring practice for many, many years. And that's true of the Chinese team. Well, I get to offset that. Like I get to be the one that brings something like more fun and more stimulating to practice. And then when I went to the Netherlands, they were fully bought in. They loved this idea. But also because we were so focused in the weight room. They're such a strong team. Their training age in the Netherlands is very, very high. And there are gurus in the Netherlands like Franz Bosch, who has been pioneering new ways to think about training that can get more out of training. And they're very much a culture that is about, punching above their weight, that we are a super small country that does very well internationally in sporting events because we think differently. So my think differently approach worked real well. The Germans are a little bit more conservative, but have also fully bought into this idea because we keep getting better. We knock on wood. Everyone might worry that when you scrap the traditional jump rope, stretching, foam rolling, and you play games instead, that you're going to get athletes hurt. And and that has not been the case for the last 10 years and 4 countries of me doing this system. That instead I found that what I would worry about with athletes getting hurt is doing the same thing over and over again. You're not looking around corners when you're doing that. You're not preparing for chaos when you do that. When you take volleyball players and make them have to catch a frisbee and they're terrible at throwing frisbee, that's where you're starting to get novel positions, movements, starts and stops. When the next day they have to think about an obstacle course that I've created where they have to get balloons from A to B, and that involves ducking and jumping and cooperating with a partner who's terrible, then that also is hopefully making an athlete more robust. And so it's by giving them all of this variety that, I don't know how many wins this is, right? It is making, I get to sneak strength in. I get to sneak my favorite physios exercises in. I get to help my head coach. The athletes are delighted they're doing something new. And I'm putting their body through new things very, very often that are hopefully, and so far have proven, to make their bodies really robust when they get into the chaos of war.
Can I give away one of your, you posted it on Instagram. Can I give away one of your drills?
Please.
Okay. All right. So this is one we did. And by the way, I'm going to give Rhett full credit for this one because I stole it, honestly, right from you. But and we were in this narrow hallway. Okay, we don't even have a whole lot of space. And again, we started out with our traditional, or here's our traditional warm up. We're going to go through we got our pay the dues, right? Still got to do the lunges and the shoulder work and the various other things. These are the things you got to do. Now we're going to lay the cones out. Okay, we put different color cones, and we can only go two sets of cones. We don't have any room. We can't make a circle. It's too narrow of a hallway. So what we ended up doing was, I would call quick feet, or we would do low squat foot, low jump. So they're basically in a squat pattern. They're lifting their knees up, vertical jump, trying to touch the ceiling. Switch, but you switch where they're switching sides. And if I went right, then the girls on the inside had to switch, and if I went left, then the girls on the outside had to whatever. But just based on the space we had. Okay, so we couldn't do a perfect no zombies. I'm not sure what you even call that drill, Rhett. But it was so much more fun, but yet they did everything. I mean, what part in a volleyball game, what are they not going to do that we just did? We did it all. So
yeah, it's up to your creativity. I mean, you just get to pick what is the most important thing in like if you are a volleyball coach and if you were doing that drill and your coach is mad at the way that they do dive rolls, you can say, if I say dive right, you go to the next set of cones by diving right. And your head coach will want to buy you a beer afterward. Like that's how that works. Like you are going to delight them. If your head coach is talking about how they're terrible at crossovers, you space those cones so that to get from one to the other, they have to do a crossover like they're crossing over at the net. That's how my brain works when I'm designing these things. I'm going to adapt it to whatever makes my head coach want to buy me a beer afterward. Whatever his headache is, that's what I'm going to try to solve with that warm up. So I throw that kind of lens on. And by the way, John, to answer your question that I think I forgot about, has there been pushback? The key to doing this is that when you first want to implement this kind of idea, you don't implement it with the fun games. You implement it with stuff like this that looks like volleyball, that looks a lot like whatever the sport is. You just make it different. You make it something that, if I were with football, I would be making it a grind. Like I'd be crushing them sometimes. I would make it look like Hell Week. If that bought me some credibility there, I would be kind of giving the head coach what he wants to see, and then on the back end, delighting the athletes every fifth day with something more fun and interesting. And that's the way I'd go into it. That's how I've sold this program, because even though I've been with 4 different countries, within those 4 countries, I've been with about 11 different head coaches, because head coaches come and go all the time with me. And I'm always having to resell this program, like my philosophy, with a new head coach who, has never seen something like, I don't know, hasn't seen, but might not know me. And that's the way I do it to ensure that I don't get that pushback.
Well, I think we could almost take this. I'm sorry, John, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What were you going to say? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so basically we could take this whole concept, and it doesn't matter if I'm training a basketball team. It doesn't matter if I'm training a girls' soccer team. It doesn't matter if I'm we can still take the concepts and the principles and apply it to whatever sport we're training, and still, it's just, be creative, but yet also be observant. Be, what does your sport demand, and we can plan accordingly. Although we'll say this, I will not be teaching high school teenage girls how to bounce quarters. I will not do that. All right. So I won't do that one. Okay. So that's not coming.
I will tell you, Chris, when that idea occurred to me, I was so happy with myself. I was over here in Turkey. It took me a month to source solo cups. They don't have them here. Somebody's going to make a fortune when they bring solo cups to Turkey. I had to get solo cups brought over here. Then I had to source quarters. I asked every American living in Istanbul if they had any American quarters. But yeah, for those that are listening, I developed a warm-up where, if you can imagine, I have 7 girls versus 7. I have a team of 14, so I have 7 versus 7, and it's mano y mano. Girls across the table from each other, and everybody has a quarter in a cup. And once I say go, it is bam, 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 bam. If you make a quarter in your cup just like the college drinking game, then both of you have to run to the opposite wall. The person who made the quarter in their cup actually have to go farther and grab a cone and stack it in a certain place so that the person who did not make it gets a quicker run, so they have an advantage to come back and get a couple throws of the quarter into the cup. And it's seeing who can clear their cones the fastest. And we, of course, I've since had more and more iterations of this, like where when you defeat your opponent, you can go over and help one of your teammates, and like we'll do battle royale stuff. Anyway, I thought this would be gangbusters. No one seems to care about this idea. I am alone on an island of people that I guess nobody in this world wants to teach their kids how their volleyball players how to play quarters or flip cup or any of these, or beer pong. All of these I've made into volleyball warm-ups that no one cares about.
Just so you know, they did not learn it from me, guys. If you're listening to this, I
mean, guys, I mean, if you're out there and you're teaching, you can be teaching this to all these teenagers, and they're just going to be sending you a thank you note when they're 24 years old, and they are killing everybody. Think of the next generation. Come on.
I know. I'm not. Not planning ahead, but. No, that really was it's a brilliant idea. It really is. And I'm just like, oh boy, I can see myself really good.
Honestly, we laugh, but this is the way I think. If I can disguise real work with something interesting like that, like they don't even remember. I can make them dive to the cone. I can make them do 3 somersaults. I can make it super volleyball specific. I can set up all kinds of obstacles that make it really hard once you make your quarter in the cup. They will not care. They are so competitive. They love the game so much that I can get away with making the rest of warm up, or I can make that game brutal, or I can take breaks during that game to make them do, I don't know, something miserable like a wall sit that nobody likes, that my physio might like. I can get away with that because the quarters is so much freaking fun. They'll spend 2 minutes on the wall shit talking each other from the last quarters game. And they'll be smiling while their legs are shaking because they can't wait to get back. And you earn it.
Right.
And I think that's the beauty of this structure and system that you've built. Like I know myself as a coach, like I like what I like kind of to a fault, and that's a problem. I need to get better at that. But there are plenty of things that like I want to try and I want to implement, but I don't want to take away from, my core competencies of what I do. And like, so when you said that really resonated with me, because it's like, man, that's a great opportunity to, kind of put some of these other things that I want to try in and see what the response is, see how they work, do the athletes like them? Do I get a benefit out of it? With it still having fun and without taking away from what I still want to, the main meat of my workout to look like.
And John, one thing that I tell people all the time, that if you want to just dip your toe into this idea, run, like if you have everybody line up on a baseline and you end up kind of doing like a transit kind of warm up, maybe where you lunge across and you skip back and you crawl and then you do something in place and then you do like if that kind of thing, just like set up like a row of tennis balls at the end line, and then dabble with some what I call movement puzzles, and do your same warm up that you've done the whole time. Just give them 30 seconds, maybe 15 seconds to do a movement puzzle every once in a while. Okay, guys, do your 10 body weight squats. Awesome. Take that ball and throw it from behind your back to in front of your back. Catch it. Let go left hand to right hand, then right hand to left hand. And you'll get neural engagement, you'll get some smiles, you'll get some laughs, some shit talking, and then scrap it. 20 seconds later, okay, everybody back on the line. We're doing walking lunges like we always do. Go all the way across, come back. Okay, now I want everybody to drop that ball, dribble it off the bottom of your foot one time, and then catch it with your opposite hand. Who can do that the most times in 20 seconds? Go. And you are gonna see focused, neural engagement, solving movement problems. Like, don't we want athletes that are just like, we're always looking for more athletic people. We would love athletes to play multiple sports. Well, why aren't you using your warm-up as a time to wire different circuits that are slightly outside of what you're normally doing in ways that are different, but also are not detracting from what you do. Like you said, John, there are exercises that you ride or die with, and I get that. And you maybe, but I'm guessing you could sacrifice 5% of them in a warm-up to do something that might be expanding the movement library of your athletes. That maybe some of those lucky touches that athletes can sometimes pull out of their ass in the when they're in the game, maybe that comes from the fact that you've been wiring some really unique patterns using something as simple as a tennis ball for 20 seconds at a time, 4 times during a normal warm-up.
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting thing that you're talking about. To that point, or something similar to that point, I remember. Oh gosh, this was probably 25 years ago, and it was somebody talking about how they basically did that drill with a hacky sack. They bought like a whole bunch of these hacky sacks and basically did that drill. Had to bounce it off one foot, catch it with the opposite hand. And they had whatever time limit it was. I don't remember what it was exactly, but I was like, or they had to partner up. They were already partnered up. How many touches can you get total? In whatever time frame you had. All right, hacky sack down. All right, next drill or next staple exercise, John, whatever it was. So I mean, a lot of these things. It's funny, Rhett, that you're bringing these up. It's like back in. Of course, I'm pretty old, so I've been around a while. But as far as like hearing some of these things, it's like, okay, I've heard of people doing something like this, and I'm kind of recalling these things as you're talking sometimes. So yeah, it's impressive.
Chris, not as impressive as the head of hair you have for being old. I'm very jealous. Very jealous.
That's
and
a fact.
by the way, you're talking to somebody that has a yearly hacky sack budget, so you are speaking
Nice.
my language.
Sweet.
Yeah, and
All
I'll
right.
tell you, my favorite variation of this is to get teams of 3 girls together and
All right.
have so 3 to 4 athletes together with 1 hacky sack per group, but they are against each other, and you set a number. So you say, if you can get every single person to touch that hacky sack before it drops and then catch it, you scream hack at the other team, and they have to go run an obstacle course, right?
Nice.
And so it is like this great like team competition, working together, but also adding. And then you would, if the winning teams go against winning teams, you set a time limit for 1.5 minutes. Then you put the best teams together, and it becomes like a very competitive way to do hacky sack competitions.
Nice,
yeah,
brilliant. Yeah,
honestly, there is a genius speed coach called Randy Huntington that was over in China with me, and he's the first one to tell me, Rhett, hacky sack, or actually in China they have these feathered hacky sacks that are called jiansa, and he's like, jiansa is a fantastic hip opener. He's like, that is like, you want to talk about hip mobility. I never worry about that with my Chinese athletes, and I've realized this because they all grow up. That is like a national sport in China, is being able to do jiansa.
Nice.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay, so we got like 10 minutes left here ish as we wrap this up. I got a good question for you here. Now, you cannot answer it with the beer games because we got to be able to translate this to, high school, middle school. So, like, what's an all-timer here? What's an all-timer that, one of the coaches that's listening can take? Your all-time favorite that doesn't involve a drinking game.
Honestly, I think that a required piece of equipment that coaches should have is broomsticks, like dowel rods, like PVC pipe that is all that size. I use them constantly. Not only can they be used as, like as bars, I guess, for overhead squatting and things like that. You can do abdominal exercises with them. You can make a lot of things hard, but they're also a ton of games you can play with a stick. And one of my favorites is I'll give you 2 examples, but if you can imagine athletes as partners, one of them holding the stick and one of them standing, we play Jedi. And instead of all of the mobility crap that you've been doing, scrap that for the day. Say that the rules are that the athlete who is getting attacked cannot move their feet. The athlete who is attacking has to keep the lightsaber kind of moving in the same direction the whole time. They cannot change direction mid-swipe. And they have to move all around the body. And and you're trying to get the kid being attacked into the most shapes possible. So you are stabbing right at their belly button, and you do it slowly so the athlete has to figure out how to get around it. And then, you swipe at hip level and they have to get into the deepest squat that they've ever wanted to. You go straight for their knee, so they have to wobble their knee out of the way to get it out. You go behind them, make them look behind them, and you are, maybe slicing straight down through the top of their head, and they have to figure out a way to get around it. So it's like solving movement puzzles at a time. It's social, it's interactive, it's mobility, but fun, and that's phase one. So we would do that. I'd let them go back and forth for a little bit doing that. I can change the rules, let them pick up their feet if they want, let them put their hands on the ground if they want. It can get very, very dynamic. But then in phase two, I'll do this thing where one athlete holds the stick perpendicular to the floor, so holding it straight up and down. The other one is the one that has to pick it up. And we just drop the stick, and the person who has to catch it, their goal is to catch it as low to the ground as possible. And what you're trying to do, if you are the person dropping the stick, is fake out your opponent. So it is like, they will head fake. They'll drop it straight at their midline, so the athlete has to get out of the way to be able to get it. I can take this up so many levels. So I can drop the stick and then say, at the last minute, say left, and you have to grab it with your left hand instead of your right hand. I can say squat or lunge, and you have to grab it from a squat position or a lunge position. I can do both of those things. I can say that every time you catch the stick, the person who dropped it has to run and touch a cone behind them, and then the dropper becomes the catcher, and they go back and forth, and it becomes a gnarly cardiovascular workout as they're running all around. That is if I have a brand new team, I'm very often picking those stick options, because the coaches will see that the athletes are making crazy shapes. They're gassed, they're being reactive, they're being social, they're laughing, but the sticks are dropping. The girls will be diving on the floor. It looks a lot like a lot of sports. That for me is that is a no-brainer. The other one is called, that second group is sometimes called the Zen Archer. The first one, the Jedi one is called the Zen Archer. If you want to look it up, I stole these from a really smart coach called Ido Portal, who's very popular over here.
Yeah, I'm familiar with
Ido's favorites, and he has trained some crazy athletes. So I steal those from him. Those are two great ones if you have sticks, and everyone should have sticks.
And I love it. I love it.
Nice.
Well, we're about out of time here. Go ahead, Jeff.
As a caveat, let me just as a tangent, I'll say that I think in the future, I envision a world where we have every coach has a little corner where they have their tennis ball sack, their hacky sacks, their long sticks. They have you have these little implements that can be used in tons of ways to make a warm-up just a little bit more stimulating for your athletes. And I just think that it doesn't cost much money to start building out that war chest.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow.
No kidding. Well, I definitely want to have, this has been awesome. And I want to have you on again, because I also want to actually get into your training style. I mean, yes, you have created an awesome viral thing in, No Zombies, but you're also one of the elite coaches on the planet as well. So it's I want to dig into your system as well. So I would love to have you back on, if you're willing to come back on, and we can talk about that a little bit more as well.
Well, after all that. It's a little bit unfortunate that I fucking hated this conversation, but if that weren't the case, I'd absolutely do it again, because as passionate as I am about putting this into warm-up, I actually think I do some of my best work taking these principles into the weight room. I think that the way that we make the weight room a place where I'm constantly, in the same way I'm thinking about warm-up, I'm constantly trying to find ways to kind of trick my athletes into working harder in weights than they would otherwise want to. That I want to make that a place where we're also high-fiving and laughing and swearing and shit-talking, that's an environment that I crave. That's the environment I want to work in, and that's the environment that I want to create for my athletes, especially in women's volleyball, with international athletes some of which who have never liked a weight room before. And I really think these principles that I am most often showing in warm-ups apply really well to strength and conditioning. I mean, I wouldn't have a job if the strength and conditioning weren't probably the most potent part of what I do.
Well, sorry guys, I guess we're not going to have a part 2 because of that. I will do
You
what I
told me I
can to
could
salvage
cuss.
this relationship off the air because apparently Rhett did not like the conversation. So I'll try to fix that, guys. I'll do my best, and I'll get back to you and let you know. Man, this has been great, man. Rhett, where
Awesome.
can people follow you? Where can they find you?
I'm focusing most of my efforts on Instagram these days. I was fortunate like 5 years ago that one of my athletes shook me by the shoulders, slapped me across the face, and said, "Rhett, start posting this stuff on Instagram." And so I've run with that. And so it is Rettasaurus, Rettasaurus. So that's my handle on Instagram.
And they can find the No Zombies things through that same page, correct?
It'll be hard to avoid it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. That if I have a library. Like I just did it this year after years of people asking me to please send them a spreadsheet of all the stuff. At the beginning of last year, I put it all into this Netflix style library where you can just search for the word hula hoop and it will bring up my 38 favorite hula hoop exercises if you have hula hoops. And same thing with long sticks or you just have balls. And so it just brings up, it's all video. It's a video based library. Like I said, just like Netflix has over 500, almost 600 different options on it at this point. And so, because a lot of people I think struggle thinking, oh, I'm just not as creative as you are, Rhett. And I'm not that creative either. I've gotten better at it since flexing that muscle, but I've stolen and I've been curating and stealing from all these places I've been for years. So I'm just a little bit ahead of everybody, and the library helps people catch up.
Nice.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, man, I appreciate you joining. Thank you very much, guys. I know everybody's going to get immense amount of value out of this. So y'all know the deal. Pay your dues and share the show. Rhett, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you very much.
This is great, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for letting me plug the library. That was
absolutely.
Man. And guys, I'll see what I can do about getting them on again. So that's the show, guys. Peace.